How's it going, guys? Welcome to Decoded, the truth behind the theories podcast.
And today we are going to talk about a very wide-known conspiracy theory. Was the moon landing fake or was it real?
Oh,
yes,
I don't know.
It's a juicy topic today on the Decoded Podcast.
It is.
Before we kind of get into it, let's just introduce ourselves. So I'm Josh.
100%. I'm Robbie.
I'm Carmen. I'm Juandiego.
Perfect. And today we are going to start with a bunch of different topics on this matter, but there's a lot regarding around the photos
100%.
of the Apollo 11 expedition.
Yeah.
Before we get into the photos, I'm going to give a brief overview of the conspiracy
runs
theory.
through it for sure.
Because some people watching maybe never heard of this before, but that's what we're here for. We're going to educate you.
There
We're
you
going to
go.
get you in the loop of what's going on.
Let's hear it.
So pretty much on July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission landed on the moon. It's worth to note that this was the first time humans have ever been on the moon, ever.
Big footstep.
And it was a big, quote-unquote, space race with the Soviets.
Right.
And the United States took it home, even though we're not from the States, go USA.
There you go,
Go
brothers.
USA. Notable astronauts on it were Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. But there was 12 total that did go on the expedition.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Other than that, they landed on the moon, they put a nice big USA flag right at the moon,
Planted it right
which
in
also
there,
we're going to talk about
Yeah.
because there's some questionable stuff with that. They put it in, took a crap ton of pictures. I think it was 859 pictures to be
wow.
exact,
Wow.
between the black and white and the color. And then they were off, and that was it. And then ever since that's happened, based off the photos and all the other evidence and stuff that's came out, people claim that it was doctored, it was fake.
Wow.
And a lot of it is through the photos. So we're going to start with the photos.
Let's hear about it. What do we want to start off with?
First order of business is we'll start with the no stars.
Right.
In all the photos, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to say what you got on it, what you think.
It is pretty interesting, I can't lie. I understand from an outsider point of view, you guys have done a whole lot of research on it. Seeing no stars in a photo, especially in outer space.
It's kind of suspect.
It is a bit suspect.
It's a bit suspect.
It is a bit suspect.
And especially because it's always dark in space,
Yeah.
you just expect to see the stars all the time, and especially because it's space, you expect to see it.
There's no light pollution out there. It's not like
Exactly.
Toronto.
There's no CN
There's no
Tower.
CN Tower.
There's no TD building like downtown
Yeah.
Toronto. There's no city there. There's no one lives there. I mean, that
Exactly.
we know of. There could be aliens.
Oh.
But that's a different conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's no light pollution. So I think it's worth noting. And I didn't know this, and I guarantee you, most of the people that claim this conspiracy of just there's no stars in it.
Right.
There's still kind of a day and night cycle in space. So our daytime is still the space is daytime, and our night is their night. So you can only see the stars at night.
Oh, wow.
And it's called a lunar night is
Wow.
what it's called. During the day, they call it a lunar night, which is weird. I know, it's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
But pretty much during the day, which is when the Apollo 11 astronauts went on their expeditions outside on the moon and when the photos were taken, the moon is so bright during the lunar night that you can't see the stars because they're so dim compared to the brightness of the moon. So that is exactly why you can't see the stars in the photos, is because it was the lunar night when they were on their space expedition.
Right.
So, and it's been proven. There's stuff from NASA, the International Board of Physics that have the website for there's a clear explanation for it that's been proven. That's how it is in space.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I definitely didn't know that for sure.
And
Yeah.
also, I would like to add something they were focusing on the astronauts instead of stars, so that's why there were no stars in the picture.
They're not prioritizing getting the stars in it. It's it's more of a big and pivotal moment that there's humans on the freaking
Exactly,
moon, right?
yeah.
I don't think they really care if there's stars in the background of a photo. The photo could turn out absolute crap. It could be awful, and it's still a historical photo because it's humans on the moon with an American
As long as
flag.
the humans in the shot
Right?
on the moon, I
That's
think
it,
we're-
man.
So I think it's pretty safe to say, that kind of claim for no stars in the photos is pretty much debunked.
Yeah.
In a sense, there's enough realistic information that just proves that why the stars aren't in that photo.
Oh, 100%.
It's not it was a movie set and they forgot to put stars in the background. I'm pretty sure if it was fake, there
They'd
would have
make
been
sure
stars in the
That's
background.
true.
Yeah.
You know,
They'd
there
make sure to
would
put them
there
in the
would have been
background.
stars in the background, and then I guarantee you the claim would have been, why is there stars in the background?
Wow.
You're right, and someone would have brought this up, saying like, well,
exactly.
like if they did it during the day during their lunar night, like it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, that is
right. So it's like there's always someone always trying to find something, and I just think like, you know, forgive like my language, but like it's bullshit.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Like
100%.
it is. So I think that one off the table is just completely just like irrelevant.
There you go.
To our argument, or not our argument, because
So
I think we all think the moon landing was real.
It was real.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
But like for the people who don't, that's for you. That's
Yeah.
for you. You know, that's for you.
We're gonna give you even more.
Yeah. So let's go on to like the next part about the photos. It's the crosshair marks.
Wow.
So it's pretty much like watermarks like on the photo and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was claimed by a lot of people that don't believe in the moon landing that they were like edited on there and they were fake.
Wow.
And they say that because the crosshair marks, it's like a vertical and horizontal line that goes all over the photo, was like behind some of the objects in the photos, which just kind of suggests it was like a layer, you know, like it was like there's 3 layers, and like the crosshairs was like layer 1, and then like a moon rock was like layer 3 over top of
in
it.
Photoshop
Which,
terms,
how ridiculous does that sound?
Yeah,
In 1969, you think they're doing layers, layers of things? You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense.
There's no way they could have thought of something
right? Like there was no Photoshop or Microsoft Paint or anything like that back in 1969. They had nothing.
Especially with the technology they had. I mean, come on now.
I don't even know. Like they had very, very minimal, even like computers, like in 1969.
Yeah, even just to get
the cameras that they had back then were
exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, absolutely. And like that's the thing is like the photos that were like taken in space, they have those watermarks on it because like they're very high tech, advanced like space cameras, right? And like they have like those like scanning lines in it. But I think based off what I said, like that is like one thing that like the technology definitely wasn't there back in the day for them to have it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's like the main supporting claim, but I do have more information. It's not just that.
Okay, for sure.
Also, with them being fake and stuff like that, I looked up the thing on like the Institute of Physics. It was a website.
Right.
And it like proved that brightly lit objects make crosshair marks appear fainter. So how I said before with the first point of the stars about the moon being so bright, since the moon is so bright and they put these crosshair marks on it, it's so bright on the camera lens and it can't like control it that it makes the crosshair marks kind of like a bit more transparent or like fainter. And because of that, it can give the illusion that they're behind an object when in reality they aren't. It's just the sheer brightness of the moon, which is brighter than anything we can experience on Earth, is so bright the camera cannot comprehend it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't just get rid of like the crosshair mark, it makes it have like a very weird like reaction, which kind of explains why it's like behind some objects.
Exactly.
And it's not even always clearly like right behind it. It's kind of like you look at it and you're like, wait a sec. Like it's not it gives off that effect,
100%.
but you're not like 100% like this is weird.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And like because of that, people just think the moon landing is fake because of literally just that.
Some crosshairs.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's another thing that has a very notable explanation. Based off like just like the moon brightness and stuff like that. That's completely debunked, which also just discredits the people who don't believe in the moon landing.
Like, I mean, like not a lot of people take into consideration you're able to look at the moon from your house at nighttime, and people often compare it to the sun. Well, I can't look at the sun, but I can look at the moon. But when you go really close to both of them, you're not able to look at either.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, even look at if you try to look at the sun with your bare eyes, like from just like here, dude.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like you can't do it.
You can actually go blind if you
and like even with sunglasses, the same shit, man.
Yeah.
Like it can hurt. You know? Like
100%.
Like it is bright. Imagine being on the moon.
That's
and
a whole
the
different
brightness.
ballgame.
Like I can imagine probably like the visors on like the astronauts like thing is probably like very like it's got like some kind of like solar control to it. But I guarantee they probably looked at it like without it, they could probably like burn their freaking eyes off or something, you know. So it's very bright. It's very bright. But we don't gotta talk about that one anymore. Again, debunked. I think we've squashed that one out of the way. But there is like one more thing that we can talk about in terms of like the photos being fake.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, it has to do with the shadows. The shadows in the photos looking kind of like irregular.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
So you guys have anything to say about that? You want to explain it?
Looking a bit weird.
Robbie, how about you? You explain that one for us.
You want me to explain it? Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. A lot of the people who think the shadows are fake, they say they look very artificial, very out of place. again, I don't see a reason why they'd fake that. To be honest with you.
Again, before like Carmen gets into it, it's the technology thing. It's a small point of it, but like they don't have the technology to do that stuff back then, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, Carmen, take her away, buddy.
Now I just want to dive into something really quickly about people talking about. There's a picture.
Right.
Okay.
And there's an astronaut, and then there's a pole, and they're actually not parallel. People are saying they should be parallel, and since they're not parallel, it's fake and it's edited, right?
Oh wow.
So I'm gonna kind of cut to Oja again. I'm gonna want to read this quote again that he stated. So, this is on the surface of the moon, but we can reproduce this effect anytime we want to on Earth. You have to all seen this phenomenon yourself, where because of perspective, parallel lines appear to be non-parallel. If you were trying to reduce a two-dimensional plane to a three-dimensional situation, you can make lines do all sorts of weird things. Artists have been using this for centuries. So, I want you all watching to go outside after, and I want you to stand outside, and you're going to see that your shadows aren't parallel.
Yeah.
Just like the pictures on the moon.
True.
It's crazy too, because even look, like I don't know if you guys like participated in the solar eclipse that just happened.
I did, yeah.
But the shadows are very weird on the solar eclipse
they
too.
got pretty weird.
It's not like parallel, like they appear in a very weird way.
Right.
And it's like it's described in the photos, they're irregular looking shadows, and it's because of like something, with like the solar eclipse. So, I don't think it's like a far thing to say that like when you're on the moon taking photos, or like just on the moon in general, your shadows aren't going to be like how they would be on Earth.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's a different planet with like a different environment.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be different. Like even just the rough terrain of the moon, could mess up your shadow. It's not like it's on a flat ground surface, like on concrete, like how we'd be on Earth looking at a shadow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's like on like the moon, but it's probably just going like this, like all over the place, exactly. Like it's probably like it's never been like built on, it's never been like nothing, like it's just like a raw planet, So I think all those things like it obviously the shadows aren't going to be like normal looking. I just don't know what people expect. In terms of just like a different planet for like your shadows.
Well, I mean, they said it looked artificial, right? And I think kind of spitballing off the artificial topic, I think we should talk about one of the biggest conspiracy theories about the moon, the flag, right?
Oh yes,
the flag looking very artificial.
It's a very controversial topic among the conspiracy theorists. It's a big one. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll dive
absolutely
into it a little bit here.
But
yeah,
sure.
In the photo, the flag appears like it's waving, and because there's no gravity, there's no wind, there's nothing on the moon that would make the flag wave.
Yeah, it makes it sound a bit suspect.
Exactly.
So it looks suspect. Yeah.
It does look a bit suspect.
Yeah,
and,
it looks very suspect with no context. So.
Without context, people looked at it and they're like, "Oh, well, that should be happening."
It's fake. And he's like, "Boom, it's fake."
Exactly.
That's it.
I mean, you got no atmosphere in the moon, but why is it waving? Right?
Well, I'll tell you why it looks like it's waving. So when they prepared the flag for the moon, there's actually a horizontal pole that runs.
I didn't know that.
The flag, yeah.
Oh shit.
So if you look at the picture closely,
on
the top part of the flag, there's a horizontal pole that holds it up properly. Right.
And that's
what makes it look like it's waving.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's crazy to think, like all the stuff like the team like did to kind of like think of every possible situation
it really
and like, make it work.
Yeah.
Like the flag thing, like I would have never even thought of that. I would have been like, here's a flag.
Here's a flag.
Plop it in the ground, and like that would have been it. But like clearly they knew more than we did because they did their research. And I think it's worth noting like there was 400,000 people working on like the Apollo mission, from like just people making like the spaceship to like the equipment, like everything, all the logistics. 400,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is
a lot of people, right?
And credit for those.
And like you think, over a team of like 400,000 people, you really think they're gonna like fake the moon landing when they've hired 400,000 people to like organize like a successful like event in human history? Like definitely not.
Can you mention money they had to spend to
build
this spaceship?
Like,
it's insane.
It's insane.
Thousands of professionals. I'm gonna keep cutting to Oja here. He's an American planetary scientist. Like he fact checks and speaks out to most of these claims.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have people on the street who are trying to fight against somebody who's been studying for decades on this stuff.
It is pretty crazy.
No, it is. It's wild, and I think like kind of branching off of that topic, in terms of just like preparations that like the team did.
Right.
We could talk about another commonly like known issue that people bring up that could kind of prove that it's fake. Well, it doesn't really prove it, but like
it makes them
think it's fake.
Course.
It's just like the radiation exposure you can get just from like going out of like Earth's orbit and going into space.
Yeah.
There's like these two rings that like orbit and like kind of surround Earth, and they're called the Van Allen belts.
Okay.
They're known to have like a crap ton of radiation like within them, and if people like if humans go through them, you're exposed to like an intense, like severe, like detrimental amount of radiation. That is what has been claimed.
Wow.
That is what's been claimed. So people are like, if these astronauts go through this Van Allen belt, like they would have died. They would have been exposed to so much radiation, like they would have been dead.
Right.
And the scientists like didn't just like overlook this, like who are like kind of putting all the stuff together for this mission. They're not like, oh, we'll just wing it. Like they'll survive going through. Like no, like they obviously like took precautions to make sure that like these astronauts wouldn't get exposed to so much radiation that they would die or get cancer. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they did these things. Sure. So like, like they like prepped the space shuttle. They made like a specific like cool like type of aluminum to kind of like not like shield completely the radiation coming off it, but just to protect them against it. And they did all these other kind of precautions to make sure that like it was gonna be okay.
Right.
Like they had like, I'm not too sure how many Apollo missions there were total, but I think there was like between 5 and 7.
So that sounds about
and
right.
So,
there was like an average of just like all the astronauts that went through like this Van Allen belt, and they added all of them together, like all the radiation levels that they were exposed to, and put it to an average, and it was to an average of 0.46 rads, which, for context, is still quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's still quite a bit. I'm not saying it's little, but like pretty much just to kind of get it in comparison to like what that's equivalent to, just healthcare workers that work with like MRI machines or like any kind of like X-ray machine that gives like off radiation, they're exposed to that pretty much. So it's still a lot, I know, but if these healthcare workers are like exposed to that and like the astronauts have to do this just once, it's not detrimental. No, and like there is workers on Earth that like work in like nuclear power plants that get exposed to 0.62 rads per year, which is
a lot.
Oh my God.
Like 15 more rads per year than an astronaut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say like an astronaut going through that belt, even if like this is like there's 0.46 rads, it's them going there and back combined. I think they'll survive by getting exposed to it once. Like it's the same with us. Like if we had to go through that like once, in some cases I'm sure it could definitely become an issue. Like an astronaut could die. You have like a very weak immune system or whatever, but we would all probably survive and be unharmed through it.
Yeah.
So people's claim was that like if they went through it, they would have died.
Yeah.
Also,
and
like to add something. Have you seen the video of Red Bull, like the person who jumped out of space?
Yes.
So like, if he did that and survived, it's possible to get into the moon.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially,
and like the amount of times that like our human race goes to space now is
it's crazy.
It's not as much. It's still crazy that we can go to space, but it's so much more normalized now than it was back in like 1969 to go to space.
I mean, 100%. I mean, the moon landing was a huge game changer for space travel.
Yeah, and like the space race, like we brought up, like that was just huge for the States in general, right? And we talked about like before in class, like they even do like space tours. Or like actual like civilians can pay like $1 million to go to space, right? And like if they can do that,
it's
like
crazy.
come on, like I think this belt thing is like a thing of the past. Like it was definitely doable in 1969, but in today's standards, like they definitely found a way to probably just completely just bypass avoid it. There's probably just a lot of like things that kind of can protect you from it now. But I think it's pretty safe to say like that Van Allen belt thing, forgive my language, is bullshit. I think it's another like bullshit claim that we just that doesn't really like discredit the moon landing.
I think
for most of these claims here, we do have a debunk for it.
And like I just
we're giving you the proof here.
Yeah, and like I just I think one more thing just to kind of like put the like cherry on top kind of thing. And I think is a really like good indicator of like a solid like they were there on July 20th, 1969. Is there's this thing that NASA has. It's called the Lunar Renaissance Orbiter.
Wow.
It's called an LRO for short. It's a high resolution like photo camera that can scan like a planet's surface.
Right.
So when they went on their expedition back on July 20th, 1969, they put one of these scanning machines on the moon.
Okay.
And you're like, okay, like, so what? Like, whatever. Well, they have photos, and they can take photos of the exact, like landing site that they had, like, and it's there, like, to this day.
Wow.
So, like, if, like, you know, NASA went on their LRO machine and, like, got a scan of, like, the orbit, of the moon's orbit, that was placed there back in 1969, it will show the freaking moon landing site on there.
That's pretty cool.
Right? And I think it just proves it was there. And, like, even this system was, like, documented to be put there on the Apollo 11 mission.
Right.
So, if they never went to the moon, like, why would that be there?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And if they went to the moon, why would there be a whole landing site there? And I know someone's going to say, oh, they could have just staged it, blah, blah, blah. But do you really think they're going to go out of their way to make a mission to the moon? Because they haven't been to the moon in a long time. But, like, when they went, right? It's like, do you think they really had all that extra time to put, like, an extra, like, space shuttle in there to, like, plant on the freaking moon? Like, probably not. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It's just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's pretty clear to say that, like, you know, we did go to the moon in 1969.
100%.
We won. Well, not us. We're not Americans, but we
Not
won.
Americans.
We won
Our
the space race.
Our
brothers in arms. We
Yeah.
won. We won the space race with our brothers in arms. I think it's pretty safe to say that. And like a lot of the claims that pretty much are trying to debunk it to say that it was fake don't really make sense after doing the research.
After putting enough research into it, it definitely.
After looking at all this, I mean, I can get why they would do that at the beginning, like right when they land on the moon. But if you're looking at something like this now, we have proof for everything.
We have so much, and you know it's crazy. Like we've been talking about this for like, almost 22 minutes, and I still have so many points on here that we could brush that prove that it was real. Yeah. But I genuinely think, based off like all the stuff we have talked about, I think it's more than enough to just show that like it was real. It happened.
100%.
And if this isn't enough information for you, go do some more research on your own.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
there's a lot out there.
There is cold hard evidence here from
Yes.
very reliable sources, which will be in our citation page that you can look at.
For sure. There you go.
You know? So I think we'll just, you know, leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think it's a very safe assumption just to say that, you know, we didn't really evaluate both sides, but there's not really any false evidence proving
I think
that at least that we could find that would say that
I think all
it was fake.
All the points we looked at, I think there's definitely a counterpoint that.
Absolutely. Like there's always a counterpoint for like you know what the issue is, but everything we looked at, there was like a positive of like it was real. There was nothing really like there wasn't enough evidence like saying that it was fake. You know, so I know we're supposed to argue both sides, but I think for this podcast's sake and like the topic that we're talking about, I think it's pretty safe to say that we're just trying to argue that it is true, and that it definitely was not fake.
It's hard to fight against it.
It's a hard fight for sure.
And I think it's like for all the viewers watching, you know, you should believe it. You should believe that the Apollo 11 mission did happen on July 20th, 1969, and Lance Armstrong was there. He was like famous astronaut ever. And I think he says there's a famous quote from Apollo 11. I think it's like one small step for man, and I forget the other part of it. But it's a very famous quote.
Big leap, or giant leap for mankind or something like
that. There's that. And that came from the Apollo 11 mission. Right? So it's a very pivotal moment in human history.
100%.
And we just want to thank you for watching. And
100%. Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for everyone who's watching, and hope you all have a good rest of your Friday on this beautiful November 15th. And
we'll catch you later.
Take care. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you.